Today, we are talking about one of the craziest unsolved crimes in American history. This is the story of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist that happened way back in 1990. Two guys dressed up as cops walked into a museum in Boston and walked out with over $500 million worth of art. And here is the thing. Nobody knows who did it. Nobody has been arrested. None of the art has ever been found. We are talking about priceless paintings by some of the most famous artists who ever lived just gone into thin air. The museum still has a $10 million reward out there for anyone who can help get the art back, and that is the biggest reward any private institution has ever offered for anything like this. So let me take you through exactly what happened that night, because this whole thing is absolutely wild. First, let me give you some background on this museum, because it is not just any random art museum. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum was built by a woman named Isabella Stewart Gardner who lived from 1840 to 1924. She was this super wealthy art collector who spent her whole life gathering up some of the most incredible pieces of art from around the world. She built this museum specifically to house her personal collection, and it opened to the public in 1903. She kept adding to it and arranging everything exactly how she wanted it until she died in 1924. Now here is the important part. When she died, she left the museum a bunch of money to keep it running. About $3.6 million, which would be like $66 million today. But she also left some very specific instructions in her will. She said that the arrangement of all the artwork could never be changed. Nothing could be moved. Nothing could be sold. Nothing new could be bought. Everything had to stay exactly where she put it forever. This becomes really important later because of what happened after the robbery, but we will get to that. By the 1980s, the museum was having money problems. They were running low on funds, and this meant the whole place was kind of falling apart. They did not have climate control. They did not have an insurance policy on the art. The building needed basic maintenance work done. It was not a great situation for a place that was supposed to be protecting priceless artwork. In 1982, the FBI found out about a plot by some criminals in Boston who were planning to rob the museum. This was a wake-up call, so the museum finally put some money into improving security. They installed 60 infrared motion detectors throughout the building. They put in a closed-circuit television system with 4 cameras around the outside of the building. But here is the thing. They did not put any cameras inside the actual museum. The board of trustees thought it would cost too much money. They did hire some extra security guards though. But even with these improvements, there was still a big problem with how the guards could call for help. The only way they could contact the police was by pressing a button at the security desk. That was it. Other museums in the area had systems where the night watchman had to call the police every hour just to check in and say everything was normal. The Gardner Museum did not have anything like that. In 1988, an independent consultant came in to look at the security and said it was about average for museums, but recommended some upgrades. The security director from the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston also suggested they make some changes. But because the museum was broke, and because Isabella Gardner's will said they could not do major renovations, the Board of Trustees said no to pretty much all of these suggestions. They also said no when the security director asked for higher pay for the guards. The guards at the museum were making just a little more than minimum wage. And apparently, the security problems at this museum were basically an open secret among the people who worked there. Everyone knew the place was not as protected as it should be. So that is the situation going into March 1990. A museum full of priceless, irreplaceable artwork with subpar security, underpaid guards, and no way to quickly alert police if something went wrong. Now let me tell you about the actual robbery. It happened early in the morning on Sunday, March 18th, 1990. This was right after St. Patrick's Day, which is a huge deal in Boston. There were parties all over the city and people were out late celebrating. Around 12:30 in the morning, some people leaving a St. Patrick's Day party near the museum saw two men in police uniforms. The men were sitting in a hatchback car parked on Palace Road, about 100 feet away from the side entrance of the museum. The people at the party just assumed they were regular cops. Inside the museum that night there were two guards on duty. Their names were Rick Abath, who was 23 years old, and Randy Heston, who was 25. Abath was a regular night watchman, but this was actually Heston's very first time working the night shift at this museum. The way security worked was one guard would walk around the galleries with a flashlight and a walkie-talkie, while the other guards sat at the security desk. Abath took the first patrol, and while he was walking around, something weird happened. Fire alarms started going off in several rooms, but when he checked, he could not find any actual fire or smoke anywhere. He went back to the security room and looked at the fire alarm control panel, which showed smoke in multiple rooms. He figured there must be some kind of malfunction, so he just disabled the panel and went back to his patrol. Then, before finishing his rounds, Abath stopped at the side entrance of the museum. He opened the side door briefly and then shut it again. He did not tell Heston about this. Some people think this might have been a signal to the thieves waiting outside. Abath always said he just did it routinely to make sure the door was locked. But one of his co-workers later said that if Abath had been opening that door all the time, supervisors would have noticed it on the computer printouts and told him to stop. Abath finished his patrol and got back to the security desk around 1 in the morning. Then Heston went out to do his patrol. At 1:20 in the morning, the two men in police uniforms drove up to the side entrance, parked their car, and walked to the side door. They rang the buzzer which connected them to a bar through an intercom. They told him they were police officers investigating a disturbance and they needed to be let in. Abath could see them on the closed-circuit television and they looked like cops. He did not know about any disturbance, but he figured maybe some drunk St. Patrick's Day partier had climbed over the fence and somebody reported it. So at 1:24 in the morning, he buzzed them in. The two men first came into a locked foyer area between the side door and the actual museum. They walked up to Abath at the security desk and asked if anyone else was in the building. Abath used his radio to call Heston and told him to come back to the security desk. Right around this time, a bath noticed something. The taller guy's mustache looked fake. Then the shorter one told a bath that he looked familiar. He said they might have a warrant for his arrest and told a bath to step out from behind the desk so he could check his identification. This was a huge mistake, but a bath did what they said. He came out from behind the desk, which meant he was now away from the only panic button in the whole museum that could alert the police. As soon as he stepped out, the shorter man pushed a bath against a wall, spread his legs, and handcuffed him. Right then, Heston walked into the room, and the taller thief turned him toward the wall and handcuffed him too. With both guards now in handcuffs, the two men dropped the whole cop act. They told the guards they were actually there to rob the museum and asked them not to cause any problems. They wrapped duct tape around the guards' heads and eyes so they could not see anything. Then, without even asking for directions, they led the guards down to the basement. They handcuffed a bath to a steam pipe and Heston to a workbench. Then they did something kind of creepy. They looked through the guards' wallets and told them they knew where they lived. They threatened them and said if the guards did not tell the authorities about what happened, they would get a reward in about a year. The whole process of getting the guards under control took less than 15 minutes. By about 1:35 in the morning, both guards were secured in the basement and the thieves had the entire museum to themselves. Now here is where it gets interesting. The thieves' movements through the museum were recorded on those infrared motion detectors. Even though they had subdued the guards by 1:35, the motion detectors did not pick up any movement in the first room they entered until 1:48. That is a 13-minute gap. Investigators think they might have just waited around to make sure the police had not been alerted before they started taking anything. The first room they went to was called the Dutch Room on the second floor. As they got close to the paintings, a sensor went off. This sensor was supposed to alert staff when visitors got too close to the artwork. The thieves smashed it. Then they got to work. They took two paintings off the wall. One was called The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, and the other was A Lady and Gentleman in Black. Both were by Rembrandt. They threw both paintings on the marble floor, which shattered the glass frames. Then they took out some kind of blade and cut the canvases right out of their frames. They also took a big Rembrandt self-portrait off the wall, but they left it leaning against a cabinet. They did not take it. Investigators think it might have been too big to transport, because unlike the other paintings, this one was painted on wood instead of canvas, so they could not just roll it up. Instead, they took a tiny self-portrait etching by Rembrandt. This thing was about the size of a postage stamp. It was displayed right below the bigger portrait they decided not to take. And here is a weird fact about this little etching. It had actually been stolen before, back in 1970, but it got returned. On the other side of the Dutch Room, they grabbed two more paintings. One was called Landscape with Obelisk, and the other was The Concert by Vermeer. They cut both of these out of their frames too. The last thing they took from the Dutch Room was this ancient Chinese cup called a ju. It was a bronze vessel about 10 inches tall that was used for serving wine in ancient China. This thing dated back to the Shang dynasty around the 12th century BC, making it one of the oldest items in the entire museum. At 151, while one thief was still working in the Dutch room, the other one went to a narrow hallway called the Short Gallery on the other end of the second floor. Then both of them were working in there together. In the Short Gallery, they started unscrewing a frame that held a Napoleonic flag. It looks like they were trying to steal the whole flag, but they gave up partway through because not all the screws were removed. What they did take was the bronze eagle finial that sat on top of the flagpole. This eagle might have looked like it was made of gold to them. They also grabbed 5 sketches by Edgar Degas from this room. The last thing they stole was a painting called Chez Tortoni by Manet. This was in the Blue Room on the first floor, and it was the only thing they took from downstairs. Now here is something weird about that painting from the Blue Room. The motion detectors did not pick up any movement in that room during the entire time the thieves were in the building. The only footsteps recorded in there that night were Abbot's during his earlier security patrol. Nobody knows exactly how the thieves got that painting without setting off the motion detectors. Before leaving, the thieves went back to check on the guards in the basement. They actually asked if the guards were comfortable. Kind of a strange thing to do during a robbery. Then they went to the security director's office and took the video cassettes from the closed circuit cameras. They wanted to get rid of any evidence of their faces. They also took the data printouts from the motion detecting equipment, but they left the hard drive, which also had the motion data on it. They left the empty frame from Chez Tortoni sitting at the security director's desk for some reason. Then they started loading up the artwork. The side entrance doors were opened at 2:40 in the morning, and again for the last time at 2:45. The whole robbery from the time they got the guards under control to the time they left took 81 minutes. The next shift of guards came in later that morning and could not get anyone inside to let them in. They called the security director, who came over with his keys. He found nobody at the watch desk and called the police. When the cops searched the building, they found a Bath and Heston still tied up in the basement. So what exactly did they take? 13 pieces total. The FBI estimated the value at $200 million right after it happened. By 2000, they raised that estimate to $500 million. Later on, some art dealers said it could all be worth $600 million. This is considered the highest value museum robbery in history. The most valuable stuff came from the Dutch room. The concert by Vermeer is the big one. Vermeer only has 34 known paintings in existence. Just 34. This is one of them. The concert alone accounts for half of the total value of everything that was stolen. In 2015, experts estimated its value at $250 million. Many experts think the concert might be the most valuable stolen object in the entire world. The Storm on the Sea of Galilee by Rembrandt is another huge loss. This was his only seascape. The only painting Rembrandt ever did showing the sea. Its value has been estimated at about $140 million. The other Rembrandt pieces were a lady and Gentleman in Black, and that tiny postage stamp-sized self-portrait etching. There is also the painting called Landscape with Obelisk. This is interesting because the thieves probably thought they were stealing a Rembrandt, but it was actually painted by his student Govert Flinck. It had been attributed to Rembrandt for a long time until experts quietly changed the attribution a few years before the heist. The ancient Chinese GU is worth maybe a few $1,000s. The 5 Degas sketches were all done on paper less than a square foot in size, using pencils, inks, washes, and charcoal. They are worth less than $100,000 combined. Nothing compared to the paintings. The Eagle Finial has a separate $100,000 award just for information leading to its return. And then there is Chez Tortoni by Manet from the Blue Room downstairs. Here is what confuses everyone about this robbery. The thieves took some incredibly valuable stuff, but they also took some things that are basically worthless compared to what they left behind. They walked right past paintings by Raphael Botticelli and Michelangelo. They did not even go up to the 3rd floor where a painting called The Rape of Europa by Titian was hanging. That painting is one of the most valuable pieces in all of Boston. Instead, they grabbed an ancient Chinese cup worth a few $1,000 and a bronze eagle from a flagpole. Also, the way they handled the artwork was really rough. They threw paintings on the floor. They cut the canvases with a blade. They probably rolled them up to carry them out. All of this would have damaged the paintings. Art experts have said that if whoever took these paintings did not store them under proper conditions, they could have been damaged even more, or might not even exist anymore. This selection of items and the rough handling has made investigators think the thieves were not professional art thieves who had been hired to steal specific pieces. Real art professionals would know what to take and would know how to handle it without destroying it. Now remember what I said about Isabella Gardner's will. She said nothing in her collection could ever be moved. So what did the museum do after the robbery? They left the empty frames hanging on the walls. They are still there today. If you visit the museum, you will see these empty frames where the stolen paintings used to be. They serve as a memorial to what was lost and as placeholders in case the art ever comes back. Because the museum did not have much money and had no insurance policy, they needed help posting a reward. They reached out to Sotheby's and Christie's, which are big auction houses, and within 3 days they had a $1 million reward posted. In 1997, they raised it to $5 million. In 2017, they doubled it to $10 million. That $10 million reward is the largest bounty ever offered by any private institution for anything like this. The reward is for information that leads directly to the recovery of all the items in good condition. Federal prosecutors have also said that anyone who willingly returns the items will not be prosecuted. Plus, the statute of limitations expired in 1995, so technically even the actual thieves cannot be prosecuted anymore for the theft itself. So if you know where this stuff is, you could get $10 million and you would not go to jail. Now let me tell you about the investigation because this case has been going on for over 30 years and there have been a lot of suspects and theories. The FBI took control of the case right away because they figured the artwork would probably cross state lines at some point. Investigators have said this case is unusual because there is almost no physical evidence. They do not know if the thieves left any DNA. There were fingerprints and footprints at the scene, but they could not figure out if they belonged to the thieves or to museum employees. The FBI has done DNA analysis over the years as the technology has gotten better, but some of the evidence has actually been lost in their files. What they do have are descriptions from the guards and from the witnesses who saw them outside before the robbery. One thief was described as about 5'9" to 5'10" in his late 30s with a medium build. The other was about 6 feet to 6'1" in his early 30s with a heavier build. Let me go through the main suspects and theories. First, there is Rick Abath, the security guard. He was investigated early on because of his suspicious behavior that night. Remember, he opened that side door during his patrol before the thieves arrived. Some people think that was a signal to them. He also was the one who let them in. And then there is the mystery of the Blue Room. The motion detectors did not pick up any movement in there during the robbery, but that is where Chez Tortoni was stolen from. The only footsteps recorded in that room were Abath's during his patrol. In 2015, the FBI released security video from the night before the robbery showing Abath letting some unidentified man into the museum. The guy came in and talked with Abath at the security desk. Abath said he could not remember who it was or recognize him. The FBI asked the public for help. Eventually, some former guards came forward and said it was actually the museum's deputy security chief, so that was not suspicious after all. Abath always said he was innocent. He died in 2024 at 57 years old. The FBI agent who ran the case in the early years actually concluded that the guards were too incompetent to have pulled off the crime. He basically thought they were too dumb to be masterminds. Then there is Whitey Bulger. He was one of the most powerful crime bosses in Boston at the time, running the Winter Hill Gang. He denied any involvement. In fact, he sent his own guys out to find out who did it because the robbery happened in his territory and he wanted to get paid. An FBI agent named Thomas McShane investigated Bulger. He thought Bulger's connections to the Boston police could explain how the thieves got real-looking police uniforms. Or maybe actual cops did the robbery. Bulger also had ties to the IRA, which is the Provisional Irish Republican Army. McShane noticed that tripping the fire alarm before a heist was something the IRA was known for doing. Same with their rivals, the Ulster Volunteer Force. Both groups had people in Boston at the time, and both had done art heists before. But McShane's investigation never found any evidence connecting Bulger or the IRA to the theft. A retired Scotland Yard investigator named Charlie Hill has a theory that Bulger gave the Gardner paintings to the IRA, and they are probably in Ireland somewhere. In 1994, the museum director received an anonymous letter from someone claiming they could negotiate returning the artwork. The writer said they were a third-party negotiator and did not know who the thieves were. They claimed the art was stolen to reduce someone's prison sentence, but since that opportunity passed, there was no reason to keep it anymore. They said the artwork was being held in a non-common law country under climate-controlled conditions. They wanted immunity for everyone involved and $2.6 million for the return. The writer told the museum to put a coded message in the Boston Globe if they were interested. The museum director thought this was a real lead, so she contacted the FBI, and they printed the coded message on May 1st, 1994. A few days later, the museum director got a second letter. The writer said they saw the message and knew the museum wanted to negotiate, but they had gotten scared because they thought federal and state authorities were running a massive investigation to find out who they were. They said they needed time to think about it. The museum director never heard from them again. There was also a guy named Brian McDevitt, who the FBI looked at. Back in 1981, he tried to rob a different museum called the Hyde Collection in New York. He dressed up as a FedEx driver and brought handcuffs and duct tape and was planning to steal a Rembrandt. He was also known to be really into flags. He matched the description of the larger robber, except he had thinning red hair. The FBI interviewed him in late 1990 and he denied everything. He would not take a lie detector test. They ran his fingerprints and they did not match anything from the crime scene. He moved to California and became a TV and film writer. He died in 2004. Now let me tell you about the main theory the FBI has focused on for years: the Boston Mafia. In March 2013, the FBI made a big announcement. They said they had identified the thieves with a high degree of confidence. They said the thieves were members of a criminal organization based in the Mid-Atlantic and New England. They believed the artwork was transported to Connecticut and Philadelphia in the years after the theft. They think someone tried to sell it in Philadelphia in 2002, but after that they do not know what happened. They asked the public for help. In 2015, the FBI said both of the actual thieves were dead. They never officially named names, but sources said the FBI was looking at a gang from Dorchester, which is a neighborhood in Boston. This gang was loyal to a mafia boss named Frank Salim, and they ran their operations out of a car repair shop owned by a criminal named Carmelo Molino. Some of Molino's guys might have known about the museum's weak security because a gangster named Louis Royce had checked out the place as early as 1981. He had a plan to set off smoke bombs and rush through the galleries in the confusion. In 1982, when the FBI was investigating Royce for a different art theft, they learned about his interest in robbing the Gardner Museum and warned the museum about it. Royce was actually in prison during the 1990 robbery, but he told other people about his plan. He thought his associate Stephen Rossetti might have ordered the robbery or told someone else about his plan. Two guys connected to the Molino gang who have gotten a lot of attention are Robert Guarente and Robert Gentile. Guarente died from cancer in 2004. But in 2010, his widow Elian told the FBI that her husband used to have some of the stolen paintings. She said when he got sick in the early 2000s, he gave the paintings to Robert Gentile for safekeeping. Gentile denied this completely. He said he never got any paintings and did not know anything about where they were. The FBI arrested Gentile on drug charges in 2012, probably trying to pressure him into talking about the Gardner stuff. They gave him a lie detector test, and the machine said he was lying when he denied knowing about the theft or where the art was. Gentile said the test was wrong and demanded a retest. During the retest, he said that Elian the widow had once shown him the missing Rembrandt self-portrait. The machine said he was telling the truth about that. His lawyer asked for a smaller meeting with fewer FBI agents, hoping Gentile would talk more honestly. In that smaller meeting, Gentile still said he did not know anything. A few days later, the FBI raided Gentile's house in Manchester, Connecticut with a search warrant. They found a secret ditch under a fake floor in his backyard shed, but it was empty. His son said the ditch had flooded a few years before, and his dad was really upset about whatever had been stored in there. In the basement, they found a copy of the Boston Herald from March 1990 reporting on the theft. They also found a piece of paper with the stolen artworks listed and prices for what each might sell for on the black market, but they never found actual proof that he ever had the paintings. Gentile went to prison for 30 months on the drug charges. He never told them anything that would have gotten him a shorter sentence or let out early. After he got out, he talked to an investigative reporter and said the FBI had framed him. He said the list found in his basement was written by some criminal who was trying to broker a return of the works from Guerente and was talking to Gentile as a middleman. Another guy the FBI has looked at is David Turner, who was also connected to Molino. The FBI started investigating him in 1992 when someone told them Turner could access the paintings. That same year, Molino got arrested for cocaine trafficking. He told authorities he could return the paintings if they gave him a shorter sentence. He asked Turner to track them down, but Turner could not find them. Turner heard they might be in a church in South Boston, but nothing came of it. The FBI believes Turner might have been one of the actual thieves, but there is evidence he was in Florida picking up cocaine just days before the heist, and credit card records suggest he stayed there through the night of the robbery. Some investigators think he might have done that on purpose to create an alibi. The FBI thinks the other thief was Turner's friend, George Reisfelder, who was also connected to Molino. Reisfelder died in July 1991, about a year and a half after the robbery. They searched his apartment and the homes of his friends and family, but found nothing. However, his siblings remember seeing a painting in his bedroom that looked like Tony. Investigators also think he looks similar to the thinner guy in the police sketches. In 1999, the FBI arrested Turner, Molino, Rossetti, and others in a sting operation. They were planning to rob a Loomis Fargo vault. When the FBI questioned Turner, they told him they knew he was involved in the Gardner robbery, and if he returned the paintings, they would let him go. Turner said he did not know who stole them or where they were. At his trial in 2001, Turner claimed entrapment. He said the FBI let the Loomis Fargo plot go forward just so they could pressure him about the Gardner paintings. The jury did not buy it and found him guilty. There is also some connection between Turner and Gentile. In 2010, Turner wrote a letter to Gentile from prison asking him to call Turner's ex-girlfriend to help recover the Gardner paintings. Working with the FBI, Gentile talked to the girlfriend, and she said Turner wanted Gentile to meet with two of his ex-convict friends in Boston. The FBI wanted Gentile to meet these guys and bring an undercover agent, but Gentile refused to cooperate anymore. Turner got out of prison in November 2019. Molino died in prison in 2005. Now, let me tell you about another major suspect, Bobby Donati. Donati was a criminal who was murdered in 1991 during a gang war within the Patriarca crime family. The suspicion that he was involved in the Gardner theft came from a famous art thief named Miles Connor Jr. Connor was actually in jail when the robbery happened, so he could not have done it himself. But he told authorities he believed Donati and another criminal named David Horton were the masterminds. Connor had worked with Donati on past art thefts. He said the two of them had actually visited the Gardner Museum before, and Donati was really interested in that eagle finial. Connor also said Houghton visited him in jail after the heist and told him that he and Donati organized the whole thing and were going to use the paintings to get Connor out of jail. Connor had done stuff like this before returning stolen art in exchange for reduced sentences. Even though Donati and Horton did not match the witness descriptions Connor suggested, they probably hired lower-level criminals to actually do the robbery. Horton died from an illness about 2 years after the robbery. Donati was murdered about a year after. Connor told investigators he could help return the Gardner works if they gave him the reward money and let him out of jail. When they did not agree to his demands, because he had no actual proof, he suggested they talk to a criminal, an antiques dealer named William Youngworth. The FBI started investigating Youngworth and raided his home and antique store. Properties in the 1990s. A journalist named Tom Mashberg started talking to Youngworth in 1997 about the theft. One night in August 1997, Youngworth called Mashberg and said he could prove he could return the Gardner paintings under the right conditions. He picked up Mashberg from the Boston Herald offices and drove him to a warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn. Inside the warehouse, Youngworth led him to a storage unit with several large cylinder tubes. He took one painting out of a tube, unrolled it, and showed it to Mashberg using a flashlight. It looked like the storm on the Sea of Galilee. Mashberg noticed cracking on the canvas, and the edges were cut in a way that matched the museum's reports. He could see Rembrandt's signature on the ship's rudder. Mashberg wrote about what happened in the Boston Herald, but left out details to protect Youngworth's identity and the location. His informant told him the robbery was done by 5 men and named 2 of them. Donati was one of the actual robbers, and Horton was responsible for moving the art somewhere safe. The FBI figured out where the warehouse was a few months later and raided it, but found nothing. Nobody is sure if what Youngworth showed Mashberg was actually the real painting. Youngworth gave Mashberg some paint chips, and the FBI tested them. They were from Rembrandt's era, but did not match the oils used in the storm on the Sea of Galilee. Also, Mashberg described the painting being unrolled, but that painting had a heavy varnish on it that would not roll easily. The authorities started working with Youngworth, but he was difficult to deal with. He would not cooperate unless they met his demands, which included full immunity and getting Connor out of jail. They only offered partial immunity and eventually stopped talking to him unless he could provide better evidence. Youngworth gave them more paint chips and 25 color photographs of the painting, and a lady and gentleman in black. The FBI tested the chips and said they were not from the stolen Rembrandts, but they were from 17th century paintings and could possibly be from the concert. In 2014, an investigative reporter named Stephen Kirkjian wrote to a gangster named Vincent Ferrara, who was Donati's boss during the gang war. He wanted to know if Ferrara had any information about the Gardner theft. Kirkjian got a call back from someone connected to Ferrara, who said the FBI was wrong about the Molino gang being involved. This person said Donati organized the robbery. The caller explained that Donati had visited Ferrara in jail about 3 months before the theft. Ferrara had been charged with murder at the time. Donati told Ferrara he was going to do something to get him out of jail. 3 months later, Ferrara heard about the Gardner theft, and then Donati visited him again and confirmed he was involved. Donati said he buried the artwork and would start negotiating for Ferrara's release once things cooled down. The negotiations never happened because Donati was murdered. A friend of Guarente also backed up the story that Donati organized the robbery. This person said Donati gave some of the paintings to Guarente when Donati started worrying about his own safety. Donati and Guarente were close friends. The 2 of them were seen at a social club in Revere shortly before the robbery, carrying a bag of police uniforms. So where does that leave us? We have over 30 years of investigation. We have multiple suspects. We have the Boston Mafia. We have guys like Turner and Reisfelder, who the FBI thinks might have been the actual thieves. We have Bobby Donati, who multiple sources say organized the whole thing. We have mysterious letters and meetings in warehouses. We have lie detector tests and prison sentences and raids that turned up nothing. And we still do not have the art. The FBI says the thieves are both dead, but whoever has the paintings now is still out there somewhere. Maybe in someone's basement, maybe in a storage unit. Maybe they have been destroyed. Maybe they are in Ireland like that Scotland Yard guy said. Nobody knows. The museum still has those empty frames hanging on the walls. Everyday tourists walk through and see the spaces where the concert and the storm on the Sea of Galilee used to be. The frames are a reminder of what was lost and a placeholder for the day they might come back. The $10 million reward is still out there. The statute of limitations has expired, so nobody can be prosecuted for the theft anymore. If you know where these paintings are, you could call the museum tomorrow and get $10 million and walk away free. But nobody has. Every few years some new lead pops up and everyone gets excited, and then nothing happens. The case goes cold again, and the paintings stay missing. This robbery happened because of a perfect storm of circumstances. A museum with weak security and underpaid guards. A holiday night when the city was distracted. Two guys who knew exactly what they were doing and never left enough evidence behind. And a criminal underworld that has kept its secrets for over 3 decades. The concert by Vermeer might be sitting in someone's closet right now. One of only 34 paintings by one of the greatest artists who ever lived. Just sitting there in the dark, worth $250 million. It is one of the craziest unsolved crimes ever, and unless somebody talks, we might never know what really happened that night or where those paintings ended up. Anyway, that is the story of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you have any theories? Who do you think did it? And do not forget to drop where you are watching from and what time it is right now. I love reading those comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.